Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm doing two videos in one because you know what I found my issue is with filming is that I gotta do my makeup every time. Ain't nobody got time for that. I'm lazy. I don't like to do my makeup. So if I'm dressed and have my makeup on, I better film all the videos that I can so that I have content to upload, because then months go by and I have nothing up on my channel, which is okay, but you know. So today I'm talking about my wrap up for October. We are on November 29th and I am just filming my October wrap up. Please forgive me, but I love doing wrap ups. It's probably one of my favorite videos to film because they are just so easy to film. They're to the point, and that's that. And I like to revisit all the books that I've read throughout the month. So that's why I love doing them so much. So yeah, October wrap up. October, Halloween month, scary month, even though I read horror all year round, but you know, you gotta up your horror game in October, because it would be silly if I was reading like other genres when horror is my favorite, right? So let's get into what I read for the month of October. For October, I read a total of 9 books, but I know what you're saying once again, like, what's up? You're reading all these books. There were a bunch of little tiny books in here. You guys know I read slow. I don't read that much every month. So when you hear 9 books, know that there are a few that are like this big. So these are in order of when I read them or how I read them. I do that because that's just every time I finish a book, I'll just go ahead and write it on here with the rating. And so as I finish them, I write them. So I just have them in that order. It's not because I'm very organized, because I'm not. So the first book that I read for October was Dead Leaves by KPB, Keelan Patrick Burke. He is a horror writer, of course, and just look at this. Look at this cover. Oh my gosh, it's just so beautiful. I gave this book 4 stars. This is a collection of short stories, and there are There are 9 short stories. I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, there are 9 short stories in this book. This book is just so atmospheric. It's so, from the beginning with that first short story, that you just get the essence of Halloween. People decorating, you know, their front lawns with the skeletons, the leaves, you know, and it's atmospheric as crap. I mean, like, you just inhale this Octoberness with this book. One of my favorite short stories is Someone to Carve the Pumpkins. I ended up giving that particular short story 5 stars. It was just so good. And another one of my favorites was The One Night of Year. Those were my 2 favorites out of all of these. And I'm reading how many short stories there are in here, and it says it right here. 9 tales. So smart. I'm so smart. But yeah, this was fantastic. If you haven't read this and you can still get your hands on, I don't know that this was limited or anything. I think you can still get your hands on, but I highly recommend it. If you want atmospheric October reads, whenever, at any time of the year, I highly recommend picking this one up and reading those 2 that I told you about. Those are by far, in my opinion, the best. Loved it. The second book that I read, I am going to consider this my first Stephen King read, because as y'all know, I did listen to the audiobook for The Mist sometime in the summer, and it wasn't my favorite. So, and it was an audiobook. So I'm not going to count that as my first King read because it wasn't my first read, right? Right? Is that logic? Is that logical? So this is my first King read. I loved it so much. So much. I don't know if I vlogged reading this book, but whatever. That is Christine. And look at this edition. I have like 3 different Christine editions because I'm not going to say that I have the 3 editions because I loved it so much, because when I bought all 3 editions, I hadn't read the book yet. But I am so glad that I bought this edition. It's just so beautiful. Look at that. It's just like so, I loved this story so much. I hate that I am filming this so far away from when I read all these books, because all I can tell you is that I loved them. I can't really emphasize the feelings that I felt. I mean, I could with this one because I loved it. Can I say I loved it one more time? I gave this book 4 stars. Now we follow Arnold, or Arnie. His name is Arnie Cunningham. And he just falls in love with this car, Christine, as he's riding with his friend one day in the streets. The friend is driving, and he just sees this beat up old 78. I believe it's a Chrysler. What is it? Chrysler something. I remember that it's a 78 though. And he sees it and he just becomes obsessed with it. And his friend is like, why? That car is just a piece of junk. Please don't buy it. Please don't buy it. But he's so obsessed with it that he finds a way and he buys the car, and everybody's mad at him. His parents are mad at him because he buys this junky car. His friend thinks that he's crazy. He starts fixing the car up, and stuff starts happening, like real crazy things start happening with this car. One thing amongst them is a murder, because we have a murderous car, but it's a lot more than it just being a murderous car. This was a fantastic read for me. The dimension, I've already read 2 Stephen King books by the time I am filming this. I've already read my 2nd King book and I am obsessed. I can see what all the rave is about with Stephen King. There is just so much dimension with his books. The character development is incredible. I really, really enjoyed this. And the reason why I picked this book, I don't know if you guys know, this video is going to be like 15 minutes long, but I was planning on reading Stephen King's books in order of publication. But I tried reading Carrie, which was one of his first books, and I just couldn't get into it. And I think it's because any books mid 70s or maybe 80s and before, I just can't get into that writing. And I believe this was written in the 80s, 81 maybe. And so I find that I can get into this kind of writing a little bit more. And then I chose Christine as my first read, my first Stephen King read, because my husband, and I think I did tell you guys this at some point in a vlog, I think I vlogged this, but my husband went to see Christine at the movie theaters when he was, I want to say maybe 12 years old. And my husband's from New York. So he went to the theater by himself to watch Christine, and he left. When he left, it was already nighttime and he had to walk to the subway, and he was just so scared of all the cars. And I just found that story so cute. So I'm like, you know what? I want to share that with him as far as reading the book and, you know, I don't know, relate to him in some way. And then we sat down and watched the movie, which was super cheesy, but I loved it. And I was laughing and I'm like, this is what you were scared of, Cheech, really? But you know, he was young. So yeah, Christine, loved it, 4 stars. Now that I've talked like 30 minutes about one book, why don't we move along? The 3rd book that I read for the month, one of my favorite books, is The Saturday Night Ghost Club by Craig Davidson. Oh my gosh, I think I did vlog all of these, and I think it was it for Spookathon that I read this? I don't even remember, that's how long it's been. But this was such an atmospheric and wonderful read. This follows a group of boys and an uncle to one of the boys. So it's 2 boys and then the uncle, and I believe the friend. I can't remember really the details, but they form the Saturday Night Ghost Club. The uncle is into the occult and things like that. And so he just goes on this trip with the boys here and there, like a couple nights here and there, and he's telling them ghost stories or things that have happened around the town where they live. And there's a nice little twist at the end with all these stories and all these places that they're going to. I have a couple of tabs in here. It was very nostalgic, 80s. Look at that cover. I've shown you guys this cover a million times, but it's just so wonderful. And I'm very, very happy that I read this. This is the Canadian cover. And I think that this book comes out in the US in June with a different cover, of course, but this one is just fantastic. You can find that book on Amazon Canada. And it's not even that expensive. I can't remember what the shipping was. I'm in Texas, but I don't think it was that much, because if it would have been, I don't think I would have bought it. The fourth book that I read for the month of October, and I think I read this for Spookathon as well, is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Oh, I think I forgot to tell you guys the rating on this. I gave this 5 stars. I think this was, no, I had 2 5 stars this month, and this was one of them. Back to The Haunting of Hill House. You guys saw on my vlog that I did not like this. It was missing something for me. I gave this 2 stars. I will throw up in the cards the vlog where I talk about this, and you'll hear a little bit more details on this. I can't speak much about it because it's just one of these books that I didn't like, so I just, you know, like trashed my thoughts on it, and I remember not liking it. I remember wanting more out of the book. I know this is loved by a lot of people, but this is my second Shirley Jackson book, and I'm just like, you know, sometimes an author is just not for you, and that's okay. You know, that's okay. You can't like everything that everybody else likes. So 2 stars on that one. I'm gonna get moving. I am gonna ask you guys one question though. Do you guys keep books that you don't like in your collection, or do you get rid of them? Part of me wants to keep this because it's a book that I read, right? But if I don't like it, why am I going to keep it in my collection? I guess I'll see as my collection grows more and more. Maybe I'll get rid of it in the future, but I don't know. Let me know. Do you guys keep books that you don't like, or do you get rid of them? The 5th book that I read for, if I say October one more time, just turn the video off. I give you permission. Next book is When Will You Rise? Stories to End the World by Myra Grant. I loved this book. I have a new favorite author, which is Myra Grant. I just bought a huge collection book that I found at Half Price Books yesterday. I'm so excited about. But this is all about the zombie outbreak for the Feed trilogy. So these are companion stories to the Feed trilogy. And this is basically how, I want to say it's how Feed started. Oh, I have yet to read that trilogy. It is on my TBR. I actually have the book in my room. I'm so excited to read it, but I've had just so many other books that I've been wanting to read, or buddy reading or read-alongs, that I haven't been able to get to it, but really want to get to Feed. This was fantastic. I ended up giving this 4 stars, but this is just 3 or 4 short stories, all having to do, I'm sorry, I keep saying 3 or 4. It's 2 stories. It's Countdown and Apocalypse Scenario number 683, The Box. Countdown is a companion to Feed. So there you go. Really enjoyed this. I really love zombies, and you guys know this already. Next book is Hunters of the Dusk, the Saga of Darren Shan. This is book number 7. I gave this 5 stars. I can't get enough of this series. You guys know it. I feel like I am I'm just being repetitive because all these books I've talked about. This series is one of my favorite series. It's middle grade. And again, I can't say a lot because this is 7th in a series and these books are this big. So I can't say too much because then I spoil the whole story for you guys. But we follow Darren Shan. He's become a, him and his friends found this Cirque du Freak, which is the name of the series, but I think that's the name of the series in the UK, and then they changed it for the US. But they find this circus of freaks, and one of his friends is fascinated by it. They go, they visit it, they watch the show, they're enthralled One of them is a vampire, Mr. Krebsley, one of the performers, and he has a spider whose name is Madame Octa, and Darren Shan becomes obsessed with this spider and he wants to steal it. Does he? I don't know. You guys are going to have to read the book, and then the story develops from there. Here we are on book 7 with the vampires. So fantastic little series. It is middle grade, but such an enjoyable one. Then I read Into the Darkest Corner by Elizabeth Haynes. This book was so good. I had never heard about this book before, but when I went to Barnes & Noble, I mean, this was months and months ago, looking for Josh Malerman's Unbury Carol, and I had to ask somebody because it wasn't in the regular area where Josh Malerman's book was. And so she tells me, she shows me where the book is, I grab it, and then she like just walks off, and she comes back to me and she's like, oh my gosh, you like thrillers and all that? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, she recommended this book, and she was like, I could not, like, I had to like lock my doors. I had to make sure my doors were locked, and I was so paranoid. And I'm like, yes, please. Whenever a book does that to you, like, come on. I will say that this book didn't do that to me per se. It wasn't like check the doors to see if they're locked type of thing, but I can see how it can make somebody do that. But this is a domestic thriller, basically. You follow Catherine Bailey. She meets this guy, Lee, and they fall in love, but things don't go right, and he may or may not be kind of a psycho. So this is just following their story and her struggle and her battle with this guy, and ending up with PTSD and just trying to rebuild her life again. So yeah, and it's really good. I love how the story, it starts off with like a case report, almost like a oh my gosh, I can't think or talk, a court report on this case. And so it starts off with those notes. It's the Honorable Mr. Justice Nolan. And so it's all the notes on that case. And that's how the book starts. So you're like, whose case is this? Like, what's going on? And the story develops little by little on top of that. So I gave this book 4 stars. I actually did enjoy it. You know, when somebody tells you, oh my God, this book is so good, it made me do this. I mean, you almost like, you're like, yes, 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 please. But then you're also like kind of skeptical going into it, because you're like, is it really that good? You know, because what other people find good, you won't. But it was a good a solid 4 stars. Gosh, I haven't done this in such a long time, and I want to talk so fast that I'm like, ugh. Okay, the next book is The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury, and this was a read-along that the Nightworms were having over on Instagram. If you don't know who the Nightworms, if you don't know who Nightworms is, I will leave their website and their Instagram link down below. Before this video, there is going to be an unboxing for a new horror subscription, which is from the Nightworms. I don't know why I'm pointing at the book. This is not their book, but they created a horror subscription, and before this, I am posting it, so I will link it up in the cards. But they hosted a read-along for The Halloween Tree on Halloween night. Oh my gosh. This was so good. This was such a nice little ride. It was almost like, you know, in the Scrooge story, I forgot what the name of the story is, but how they go to the Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas future. It's almost like that, but for Halloween, and it's not with the ghost, but it's with Mr. Mounshroud, and he takes these boys on like this history and the story of Halloween in different parts of the world. It was such a ride. It was like literally sitting down in a Disney ride and just following it with these boys and the meaning of Christmas, and they're trying to find a friend that has disappeared who loves Christmas. Halloween, oh my gosh, why am I all up in your face? This is getting crazy. We're almost done. Bear with me. So yeah, it was just a nice little ride. I gave this 4 stars. If you want a quick little Halloween read, it's so good and so cute. I highly recommend it. And my last and final book, here we are, the last one. This is 4 Halloweens, and it is with 4 authors, one of them being Keelan Patrick Burke, Ray Garton, Ed Gorman, and Norman Prentice. It's 4 short stories. I believe it's 4. Here I go again counting. It's probably on the cover. Yeah, so it is 4 stories on Halloween. They're Halloweenish stories. This was so good. I gave this 3 stars. The only thing is that I was a little bit disappointed because Keelan's, I think that's how you say his name. I'm so sorry if this is not right, but his story, which is The Toll, I had already read in Dead Leaves, and I didn't know that. I thought I was going to read another one of his stories, but this story that's in here for him is in the other book that I read at the beginning of the month. So that was a little bit disappointing, but the other stories were really solid. Honestly, I kind of forgot what the book was about, or like the little stories. I don't remember much about the stories. I just know that I gave this 3 stars. It was also a very atmospheric horror read. So, and look at that cover. Really love it. So yeah, you guys, that was my October wrap up. Okay, I said October one more time, but don't shut off the video yet because we're almost done. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and seeing what books I read. I promise I will be bringing my November wrap up within the first week of December, because we can't keep doing this, because then I can't remember, for instance, what the stories are about. So I can't tell you much about them, only what I rated them. Out of all the books that I read, the lowest ratings were The Haunting of Hill House. I always want to call it The House on Haunting Hill. I don't know why, but whatever. That was 2 stars, and then this one was next with 3 stars. All the other ones were 4 or 5 stars. It was a fantastic, spooky reading month, but you guys know that I'm going to be coming with more horror books for my November wrap up, because horror just doesn't finish with October. For me, at least. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are having a very great day, night, and week. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.